I'm Gary. Today's story is Green Iceland. Let's go, go, go! Hello, I'm Gary. Today's story is Green Iceland. Mr. Johnson took his class away for the week. They went to a big house called the Bay House. Miss May went too. The children were excited. The Bay House was near the sea, and there were lots of interesting things to do. Everyone unloaded the bus. Some of these cases are heavy, said Mr. Johnson. We're only here for a week. Miss May found a toothbrush. Whose toothbrush is this? She asked. Oh dear, said Biff. I think it's mine. Mr. Johnson showed boys their room. You're sleeping in here, he said. I want the top bunk, shouted Chip. No, I want the top bunk, shouted Wolf. Mr. Johnson tossed a coin. Heads or tails, he said. Mr. Johnson gave children a map. Then he took children for a long walk. After a while, they stopped for a rest. The children looked at their maps. Mr. Johnson showed them the places they could see. Your map's upside down, Biff, said Wilf. Let him point a little island out at sea. What's that island called? He asked. Look on your map, said Mr. Johnson. Who can tell what the island is called? Chip and Anina knew. It's called Green Island, they said. Everyone was hungry after a long walk. When they got back, it was time for supper. The children served the food, and they had washed up. I don't like washing up at home, said Wolf, but it's fun washing up here. That night, the children were tired, but they couldn't sleep. Chip kept telling jokes and making silly noises. In the end, Mr. Johnson came in. He was cross with Chip. I'll send you to bed at 6 o'clock tomorrow. If I hear any more noise. The next day, the children did a beach study. Some children worked with Mr. Johnson. They made squares on the beach and looked at everything in each square. We found a shell with a crab inside it. It's called hermit crab, she said. Some children worked with Mrs. May. They looked carefully at all the rock pools. Nana and Wolf caught a large crab. Look at this, they called. Miss May showed them how to throw the crab. We'll look at it, then we'll let it go, she said. Chip and Anina found a seagull. It couldn't fly. Oh dear, said Mr. Johnson. It can't fly because it has oil on its feathers. Oil is hard to get off, so be careful, everyone. Mind you get oil on you. How do we get off on the seagull? Asked Chip on the oil. Mr. Johnson took the children to see Miss Honey. if anyone can help the seagull, Miss Honey can, said Mr. Johnson. This poor old girl needs a clean, said Miss Honey. She looked at Anina and Chip. So do you, she said. Oil is a terrible stuff, said Miss Honey. You can see what it does to animals and birds if it spills oil into the sea. I feel it's terrible, said Miss May. I'm having trouble getting off. To Chip and Anina, I feel really sorry for the seagull. What will happen to the seagull? Asked Wilf. This feather will be damaged, said Miss Honey. So first, we'll clean the oil off. Then we'll look after it for a week or two. It has to get strong again, and its feathers have to get better. Then we'll let it go. Miss Honey to look after all kinds of animals. She showed the children an otter. Then she gave it some fish. She's a sea otter, she said. I'll call her Fiona. She was hauled by a boat. Now she's better. I'm going to let her go. Sea otters live on Green Island, said Miss Honey. If you like, you can come to the island with me and watch me let Fiona go. Miss Honey had a boat. There's room for everyone, she said. If we're lucky, we may see some more sea otters. The children went across the green island in the boat. Miss Honey stopped a little way from the island. The children looked carefully. Suddenly, Anina pointed to some rocks. I can see another otter, she said. Look, everyone! There aren't many sea otters left, said Miss May. So that was a wonderful thing to see. Miss Honey let Fiona go. The otter dived into the sea and swam towards the rocks. Will Fiona be all right now? Said Wolf. I hope so, said Mrs. Honey. Mrs. Honey took the boat on the side of the island. You can get out and explore, she said. If you keep quiet, you will see all kinds of interesting seabirds. The children jumped out of the boat to look around the island. The children saw a small cave. They ran to see it. I wonder if it has treasure in it, called Wolf. Maybe it's a secret tunnel, said Nadine. Maybe it's... But when they got to the cave, they found something else. In the cave were some drums. I don't like the look of this, said Miss Honey. These drums have been dumped in Green Island. They are full of toxic waste. Keep away from them, everyone, said Mr. Johnson. Why would anyone want to dump in here, said Beth. It's hard to get rid of toxic waste, said Miss May. It costs a lot of money to do it safely, so people dump it. We should tell the police," said Mr. Johnson. "These drums can't stay here," said Miss Honey. "They could do a lot of harm to the wildlife." Suddenly, Chip and Wolf ran to Mr. Johnson. "There's a boat coming to the island," said Chip. "There'll be 4 people in it." 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. "I don't like the sound of this," said Mr. Johnson. "Keep out of sight, everyone," said Miss Honey. "I want to see what people are doing." The boat stopped at the island and 4 people got out. They lifted some drums out of the boat and began to carry them towards the cave. "They are dumping more waste to the island," said Miss Honey. "I want everyone to run back to my boat. Don't make a sound. I have an idea." The children did what Miss Honey told them. They ran to the boat with Mr. May and climbed in. "I hope the boat will start," said Miss May. "If it doesn't, I don't know what we shall do." "Do you think those people are dangerous?" asked Chip. Wolf and Chip pushed boat with oars, and Miss May started the engine. "So far, so good," said Miss May. "Let's hope Miss Honey's idea works." "I hope Miss Honey and Mr. Johnson will be all right," said Wolf. Miss Honey's idea worked. She and Miss Johnson had taken other but other people couldn't get off the island without it. "Hooray!" shouted the children. "They won't get off Green Island unless they swim all the way back." "What are you doing with our boat?" shouted a man. "Bring it back!" "I'll get the police to bring it back," shouted Miss Honey. "You can tell them why you dumped toxic waste on the Green Island." "Grrr," said the man. The police took the people off the island. "Take their boat," was their brilliant idea, said Mr. Johnson. "I'm glad we caught them," said Miss Honey. "And I'm glad you were with me. I couldn't have taken their boat by myself." "What an adventure," said Miss May. "Look at those drums of toxic waste," said Wolf. "I can't think why people would dump them. Where they couldn't do so much harm. I'm glad their otters will be safe on the island now," said Anita. At the end of the week, there was a party. Miss May played her guitar, and everyone sang songs. Miss Honey came. She told the children stories about some of the animals had took ever. "But you have the best story to tell," she said. "It isn't every school trip that becomes famous. A photographer come." She made everyone stand a group. Then she took a photograph. "We're going to be in a newspaper," said Wolf. "We are going to be famous." "I've never been famous before," said Chip. "I wonder what it feels like." The next day, the story of Green Island went in the newspaper. The children were excited. "I'm going to buy 3 newspapers," said Chip. "One for me, one for Mom and Dad, and one for Gran. Now I'm famous. I don't feel any different," said Wolf. Thank you for reading me today. Bye!